Willkommen zurück bei The Zodiac Trial. Im letzten Part haben wir nämlich überlegt, wer unsere ganzen Freunde getötet haben kann. Wer könnte Pig töten? Wer könnte Horse töten? Wer könnte Dragon töten, denn sie ist nun auch tot? Und wer könnte Dog töten, von dem wir wissen, dass er tot ist, aber nicht in dieser Storyline, weil das zu finden wäre ein Fehler gewesen. Von daher, wir wissen aber, er ist tot. Und wir denken, es war Sheep. Und mein Grund ist vielleicht, when you arrived at the cafeteria.
What does that have to do with anything? It has a lot to do with things, actually. Because when you look at it, not a lot of people could have killed Horse. Tiger was guarding weapons, Ox and Snake returned very quickly, and Pig and Rookster were with me the whole time. Also, Dragon and Bunny arrived together. While it doesn't mean they were necessarily together all the time before that, it certainly makes it less likely either had the time to kill Horse. You, however, arrived on your own after quite a bit of time. That's a very suspicious timing, I have to say. That doesn't prove anything.
No, I think it's a pretty big indicator. If we had given it any more amount of thought at the time, we would have concluded that the main suspects should have been you, Monkey, and Dog. But fine, you won't take that as evidence. Fair enough. Let's move on to Pig's death. When was Pig killed? Oh, das ist eine wichtige Frage. Okay, wir haben gesagt, das macht keinen Sinn, weil Snake sie nicht gesehen hat. Das würde funktionieren, das macht auch keinen Sinn.
You killed Pig when the 4th round results were being displayed, didn't you? What? Everyone was scattered around the cafeteria, and everyone's eyes were in one place. It would have been easy to slip away and kill Pig then.
Mouse? I'll admit it's possible that when everyone was distracted by that, she might have been able to slip away from the crowd. But I don't think everyone was so distracted that they let a murder happen right behind their backs.
Mouse, you don't really think it's me, right? That's why you're struggling to think clearly. Because in your heart, you recognize I would never do something so horrible as murder.
She slowly started to approach me. Ich bin sowas von tot. I should have been worried, but she was so pitiful, so desperate, and so sad that I wasn't thinking straight. Could she really be the culprit? Sure, it makes sense to me, but I was just an amateur. Was I wrong?
Mouse, please, think through. I thought we could be friends. We can still be friends, right?
That's... Just as I started to respond, she lunged forward at me. She hugged me. She hugged me with one hand, stabbed something through my chest with the other. I couldn't see it, but I could guess. Before I even knew what was happening, the hand that had stabbed me went to her pocket, and she pulled out a gun. Using me as cover, she shot an Ox and Monkey in quick succession. I heard 2 shouts, 2 bodies hit the floor. I couldn't tell what had happened, but it couldn't have been pretty. With a weak shove, I lost balance and fell onto the floor. The pain from the stabbing was severe, but peanuts to the pain I felt when she pulled a knife out of my chest.
Gotta make sure.
She walked over behind my line of sight. My muddle of pain-wrecked brain couldn't tell for what purpose at first, but then I heard Ox howl and the sound of metal entering flesh. I then heard Sheep walking over to the other side of the room. Whatever Monkey was doing to fight back wasn't enough. The sound alone put the image of a clean, brutal slash in my mind. Then she walked back into my field of vision.
Sorry. You... Don't blame me!
In an instant, she bent down and slashed at me, but this horizontal swipe wasn't aimed at my throat. This one was aimed at my eyes. I died blind, but able to see my things how they truly were for the first time. Oh, schöne Karte. 9 of Hearts. If Mouse confronts Sheep with her sins, Sheep will try to appeal to Mouse to say it couldn't be her. Mouse will need to be ironclad and her will backed up with a solid reasoning, for if she falters for but one moment, she will use that hesitation as an opportunity to strike. This is a mark of the Butcher. Also muss das gewesen sein. You killed Pig when everyone went looking for her.
What?
Well, everyone thought she was already dead. In fact, she was just late. You found her, but you killed her. Then you brought her body behind that pillar. Oh ja, das geht auch nicht. Warte, aber Snake sagt doch, er hat's nicht gesehen. Da muss er ja doch gelogen haben, oder nicht? Snake sagt doch persönlich selbst, er hat sie nicht gesehen. Ach, warte. Ja, aber sie hat sie nicht gesehen. Also, da muss Snake gelogen haben. Auf dem Rückweg.
You killed Pig when everyone left to input actions for the 4th round. In fact, you had already put your action, didn't you? I did? Yeah, you did. I thought it was strange how no one I talked to saw where either you or Pig went to input your actions. That's because neither of you actually left the cafeteria, isn't that right? As everyone started to walk away, you called her over into the kitchen, saying you had something important to say to her. That's where you killed her. But Mouse, her body was found behind that pillar. Yeah, but there was no blood on the floor behind the pillar, despite the knife clearly spilling a lot of blood. She was actually stabbed in the kitchen, and you just wiped away the blood there, isn't that right? But as you said, the killer would have gotten a bunch of blood on themselves. I don't have any blood on me, and I never had a chance to clean up in the restroom. There wasn't enough time, and other people were occupying the main ones.
Kitchen Sink? Die Küche hat doch bestimmte Spüle.
I said blood was spilled out. I didn't say blood had to get on the killer.
What are you talking about, Mouse?
There's actually a way to stab someone to death without getting any blood on you. Before luring Pig over to the kitchen, you already had the necessary tools in your pocket. A kitchen knife, which is the actual murder weapon, a bunch of napkins to wipe away the blood, and a handful of plastic baggies.
Plastic baggies?
The same plastic baggies found in the very kitchen. You told Pig to look at something, maybe it bent down. Then you quickly stuffed both of your hands in plastic baggies, turning them into makeshift gloves. From behind, you brought the kitchen around Pig's body, and with both hands you violently pulled inwards, fatally stabbing her. As she cried out, you moved both of your covered hands over the mouth to silence her. It sure got a lot of blood in her clothing, but it only spilled onto your hands, which were being covered by plastic bags. Then you put both the plastic bags on your hands and the knife into a third plastic bag and began quickly wiping away most of the blood with napkins. When you wiped away enough to hide the crime scene at a glance, you put the bloody napkin in the bag and then hid that bag of evidence in your pocket. With that taken care of, you promptly exited the kitchen like nothing happened. If you're efficient, this whole thing could have taken less than 2 minutes. Mouse, that's totally ridiculous. I thought you said Pig was strangled to death. I couldn't do that. No, Sheep, that's just what you wanted me to think. And the truth, you just choked her neck after she was dead, didn't you? Mouse, that's possibly plausible, if incredibly risky. But if I understood correctly, a core mystery was how the body ended up behind a certain pillar, correct? I do not believe this explanation accounts for that. I haven't, because she wasn't done taking risks. You see, we were quite scattered throughout the cafeteria when the 4th round results began to be displayed. But those results drew everyone's attention to one place. Sheep, who had been sitting in the back of the cafeteria, was able to take advantage of this distraction. She quickly and quietly walked over to the kitchen and simply dragged Pig's body from behind the kitchen door to behind the pillar. There's no way I could do all of that. Oh, but you could.
It's possible, I'll grant you. But it's incredibly risky. Why would Sheep go through all that trouble?
Murder's a risky business, Ox. There's always a chance things could go wrong. Sheep smartly realized that if people kept dying, there'd be someone who wanted to investigate things. And she also realized that if he stopped for a second to think about Horse's murder, she'd already be under incredibly scrutiny, due to the fact that she was one of the few people without an alibi. And in fact, I'm willing to bet if we had dug even deeper into that, there have been some damning evidence which proved it was her. Her only chance to get out of this was to cause a murder so confusing that her attention would be diverted. And a murder this confusing would sow chaos, giving her more opportunities to attack us one by one. Ah, so what? Mouse, you've just been bullying me this whole time without any evidence. Where's your evidence? Show me some evidence. I'm getting there. Really? Then how about we get to Dragon's murder, huh? How are you gonna explain that? Because I was with you the whole time when that happened.
Not entirely true. When Mouse rushed off, we all chased behind her. However, we were far from a unified front. Now that I think about it, I don't think I saw you for a while there. You easily could have slipped away to commit murder.
Maybe, but I wouldn't have had nearly enough time to wash the blood off myself, right? Plus, Mouse only started running because the real killer had just fired a pistol at Dragon. You're half-right, Sheep. You wouldn't have had enough time to wash the blood off. But that's because you didn't need to. Because you employed a very nasty trick with this murder. The truth of the matter is, Sheep had Dragon commit suicide. Dragon was actually killed remotely. Oh, beides macht Sinn. Ich meine, das Killed remotely macht Sinn. Mit dem Wasser. Vielleicht ist da was passiert. Okay, warte. Okay. Was haben wir? Wir haben das Wasser. Und wir haben natürlich einen String. Also das macht für mich keinen Sinn. Das ist seltsam. Nee, das macht für mich einfach keinen Sinn. Okay. Dragon was actually killed remotely. Das würde Sinn machen, aber der Schuss würde keinen Sinn machen dann, warum er geschossen wurde. Das macht keinen Sinn. Das heißt, das Einzige, was Sinn machen würde, wäre halt, the gun was made to fire on its own. Aber das erklärt nicht den Tod von Dragon, weil Dragon ja nicht nicht erschossen wurde. Es wurde erstochen. Das würde ich sagen dann, weil das würde auch erklären, warum der Schnitt nicht so direkt ist, nicht so sauber ist, weil er halt nicht sauber ausgeführt wurde, weil es halt remotely passiert ist. Das wäre jetzt meine Idee dahinter.
Remotely? But how's that possible? She was stabbed, right? How do you remotely stab someone? I'm sure there's some way to do it. With like a Rube Goldberg machine or something. Those things can do anything. What kind of Rube Goldberg machine? If you can explain it, you can convict me with it.
That is, Are you serious? I thought you had this all figured out. Ich auch! Die Sache, das Feuer macht doch keinen Sinn. Weil, die ist nicht dadurch gestorben erst. Obwohl. Fair, es kann erst gefeuert worden sein und dann kann sie getötet worden sein. Das kann gut sein eigentlich. Es ist nicht das. Das macht keinen Sinn für mich, weil, wie soll sie das machen?
Made it fire on its own? That's not possible. What are you talking about?
It actually is.
In fact, it just requires a very simple tool also found in the cafeteria. A tool I found at the scene of the crime.
Mouse, what are you talking about? We didn't find anything at the scene of the crime.
We found something, alright. Water. Or should I say, ice.
Ice?
Ice?
Oh, falsch, Charakter.
Ice? The contraption was simple. Using the string we found sitting in the classroom, tape dispenser, some ice, and the gun. It wouldn't be difficult to make a contraption where the gun would fire on its own after an unknown amount of time. Simply wrap one end of the string around the gun's trigger, then tape the other end to the top of the door frame. Set the gun precariously on top of the door, using ice as a platform. If you put it in the right place, as the ice melts, the gun would be liable to fall down, causing the string to pull the trigger and the gun to fire wildly.
Das ist eine faire Methode. But with that sort of thing, there'd be absolutely no control over where the gun fired.
True, but she probably felt she could have worked with whatever results. She set Dragon's body up in some way where it's plausible that shot could have been aimed at her.
Ich meine, wenn es runterfällt, auf den Boden einfach. But then how could she know where Dragon would be?
She knew because Dragon was already dead.
What?
Dragon was actually killed as early as when we were looking for Pig. Remember, no one ever saw her since. I imagine she convinced Dragon to go along with her in the search. Dragon came across as crass, but I think she was the type to protect someone like Sheep. Then, when they got to that classroom, Sheep stabbed Dragon from behind with a knife.
Hold on a minute. If that happened, blood would have got everywhere.
Normally, yes. However, remember the cause of death this time. It was a cut windpipe, not blood loss, meaning that the knife didn't actually have to be removed from the wound right away. Most blood comes out when the weapon is pulled out of the body, so whatever blood specks did appear were likely minimal. She dragged Dragon's body. inside the classroom and prayed that no one would bother checking that room. Then she set up a gunploy and left. That's probably around the time when I found Dragon's body. No. Quit it, enough! Give me real evidence! She couldn't have been sure when the gun would fire, so she decided to make sure she'd have an alibi no matter what. She volunteered to help me with the investigation of Pig's death. Then, eventually, the gun fired. There was one trick to Sheep's plan. She needed to be the first to find the body. That's why she implanted a double layer of subterfuge. Subterfuge? Was ist Subterfuge? She said, I think the shot came from the third floor. Oh ja, stimmt, wir sind falsch gelaufen. Stimmt. Das war seltsam, weil sie sagte, wir waren am ersten Floor, auf der ersten Etage und sie meinte, oh nein, das kommt von ganz oben. Und dann kam Monkey und meinte, es kam von dem zweite Etage, das heißt ein tiefer. Since we were in panic, we took the guess as gospel truth and all made our way out the way. Except you didn't, did you? You went over, drank the gun and the string away, dragged Dragon to a suitable location near where the gun was fired, and pulled the knife out. All in all, if you were efficient about it, this cleanup could last as quick as a minute, maybe even quicker. Good thing you moved fast. I'm guessing just as you exit down one hallway, Monkey was running towards the body from the other. No evidence, not real evidence! That could be anybody! But would anybody stand to gain from such a setup? Seeing as there's no other reasonable explanation for why the top of the door would be wet like that, I'm confident in my theory and how the gun was fired. And Sheep, you were the only one who benefited from an alibi at the time the shot went off. Well, I guess Oxbody and I all did as well, but we all can't be the culprit. So how about it, Sheep? Who else could it be but you? How do you know the shot was fired to gain an alibi, huh? You can't prove that, can you? I can.
Oh, warte, ich hab mich verklickt.
How do you know the shot was fired to gain an alibi, huh? You can't prove that, can you?
Wurde das schon mal angewendet, diese Methode? Ich meine, höchstens Pig's Death machen Sinn, vielleicht Horse's Death?
In the case of Horse's death, we didn't hear the gunshot. Why? I'm guessing this pistol had a silencer on it. That's the only explanation. In that case, why wasn't the silencer on in this case? I can only imagine it was to make sure people heard this shot. You're not proof, not evidence! Oh, you still deny it? What could possibly make you confess at this point? Evidence! Before I could respond, Sheep started to move. She started to pull something out of her pocket. By this point, I was expecting it. I moved gracefully towards her, and just as she pulled the gun out, I grabbed that hand and pushed it away. Since I had closed the distance, I used that moment to knee her right in the stomach. Sheep fell to the ground, but that didn't stop her. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a dagger. But at this point, I had already grabbed the pistol, which had fallen on the floor, and aimed it at her. As for evidence, I figured that you probably still had the gun on you after you collected it from the scene of Trang's death. Of course, if you were really smart, you might have just hid it somewhere nearby. If you had let me search you, and I hadn't found this, I probably would have started to question if I was really right. But now, it's over, Sheep. Just admit it. I'm not. Quit looking at me like that. It's not my fault. It's not my. I just want to survive. Please stop it. Cut it out. From there, she burst into tears. No one in the room felt any pity for her. How could we? After all, she had killed 4 people in the span of a single day. All we did was wait for her to compose herself, to explain herself, to talk about why she had done what she did.
Ums Überleben! What? Ich dachte, darum geht's hier.
I thought splitting up to look for trinkets was dangerous. I wanted a bad idea where there wasn't a chance for things to go wrong. But then I realized we didn't need to look for minor trinkets. We could use the ones we had. If we all just used our abilities in the right order,
everyone could make it to the finish line, and no one person would be able to get far ahead of the group. We could stick together in one room with Tiger as a guard, and take turns in putting our designated move. But I realized that the math didn't quite work. There were too many people whose abilities didn't move fast enough. And then I remembered that I had the sheep's clothing. We had found it, Mouse.
What do the sheep's clothing have to do with anything?
If I had horse ability, things would work out. So I didn't think about it much, I just acted without consulting the group. I used it and became a copy of horse. But then... Not only had my actions changed, but so did my personality. I was now a copy of horse. I had a determined personality.
What?
I realized this in the same room where I found the hidden pistol. I was freaking out, but then the announcement played on the pad. A butcher's knife. Was it horse? I walked out of my room and I saw horse standing there. He was holding it. He wasn't looking at me and I panicked, and then before I knew it, I just fired. I killed him. I tried to hide it, but the dog came across the scene and there was an argument.
Sheep started to mumble. She wasn't meeting any of her eyes. We could finish the story of ourselves. Dog, the unseen victim.
If I didn't do something, everyone would blame me for those murders. But if I was the only witness, I'm pathetic.
Sheep, so really, this was just one big accident. Don't give her that much credit. In the end, she just chose to put her own life above ours and so committed murder. Ich meine, naja, nicht wirklich, sie wollte helfen. Sie hatte zu ganz Beginn das Interesse der Gruppe im Kopf. It's sad, but it's not an excuse.
Then you think you should have just simply accepted her fate?
Accept death? Not many have that conviction. She did accept death. The death of every single other person in the school. Don't get me wrong. I can see where she's coming from in all of this, but I have trouble sympathizing. I do sympathize with her, I really do, but Sheep, even in that situation, what you did was wrong. She didn't speak after that, none of us did. Sheep didn't even try to escape. She probably knew it was pointless. Eventually, Snake wandered into the room. We explained the situation to him. He accepted pretty easily. Bunny too, after some time passed. He found us and joined us in the wait. We input our actions for the 5th round, going one at a time. The group was talking about what to do next, but Sheep just sat silently. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, Sheep began to talk.
I didn't use to...
Oh, okay, das ist spannend. Wir kriegen jetzt Sheep Backstory. Die kommt im nächsten Part erst. Das heißt, der Part ist vorbei. Und ich danke euch alle fürs Gucken. Und bis nächstes Mal bei Zodiac Trial. Tschüss.